nice fire.
It feels so nice.
It's such a pretty night too. Look at the
It's such
sky.
a great night for that.
Oh my gosh.
What are those?
They're bats.
What are they?
What? Out here?
Yo guys, look at this awesome book I just found.
What is it?
Whoa.
Yeah, so this book looks really awesome. It says all these really cool facts about bats.
What does it say?
Like, for instance, right here, it says there's over 1,000 species of bats currently living on Earth.
Whoa.
I mean, that's a lot of bats. Think about it, that's like a lot. And they account for more than 1/5 of the entire mammalian population.
Are you kidding?
But and they're also the only mammals capable of sustainable flight. And I mean, that's pretty awesome, guys. Just think about how difficult it was for a bat or a mammal to grow wings and fly. It's just so cool.
That's so crazy. What else does it say?
It also has here a chapter on echolocation. I'm not too sure what that is, guys, but we can definitely read more about it later if you want to keep doing it.
I think so.
Yeah. And it also says what their favorite dessert is.
What is it?
I scream. I scream. Yeah. And it also says here that the bats first evolved 55 million years ago.
That's a really long time.
That is such
Oh,
a
yeah.
long time.
Whoa. Wait, can I see this?
Sure.
Super cool. Oh wait, look! This page says, when looking at bat ancestry, researchers have had issues pinpointing a specific common ancestor of bats. That's weird, I wonder why.
That is weird.
Oh, here we go. Part of this difficulty seems to stem from researchers' inability to rely too heavily on the fossil records tracing bat evolution. I
What?
wonder why. Because they're so fragile, soft-bodied, and their skeletons do not typically fossilize well. But from the few fossils researchers have been able to observe, the bones and teeth of bats have led researchers to believe that ancestors of bats were most likely insect-eating placental mammals, probably living in trees, and likely the same group that gave rise to shrews and moles.
What?
That's weird.
They don't even have wings.
That's crazy.
Let me see. Here it says that the study of certain features of bats contributes to our understanding of their evolutionary development and timeline from their ancestors to present day. The two derived characters, flight and echolocation, are vital to understanding the modern bat and its history. There are several hypotheses about whether echolocation preceded flight, flight developed prior to echolocation, or the two progressed simultaneously in bat development, but most evidence supports that flight came before echolocation, as demonstrated by a lack of wingless fossils dating back and the consistent morphology of flight capabilities throughout all modern species. Additionally, the oldest fossilized bat ever discovered, Onychonycterus finnerii, reveals the animal's capability to fly and inability to echolocate about 52.5 million years ago. So let's look at this primary characteristic first. Do you want to tell us a little bit about flight?
Yeah. Okay, right here it says, presumably flight was the first derived feature that bats developed. Scientists believe that flight first began to evolve when the ancestors of bats started leaping from tree to tree in search of insects to feed on.
What?
Can you imagine jumping from tree to tree for food? For insects? Anyway, I'll keep reading. Because of this behavior, individuals with extra skin that served as a gliding membrane had more success when hunting. This led to an increase in fitness. It took less energy to glide from tree to tree than it did to run down a tree trunk, across the ground, and back up the next tree. Additionally, if an animal is not forced to go down to the ground, it does not have to face the predators lurking there. As this continued, an adaptation for a gliding membrane developed. After thousands of years, this continued behavior led to the development of wings.
How did this change come to be? Like, how did the wing just develop?
Okay, well right here it says that the bat wing is made up of a membrane supported by the arm and the elongated fingers of the hand, which support the distal part of the wing. It says that there are fossils on record from which scientists can observe the bat wing. Whoa, look, here are pictures. You can already see the elongated fingers on them. Here is Onychonycterus finneyi,
Yeah.
and this one is Icheiroonycterus index. The bat wing consists of a membrane of skin stretched between the dramatically elongated third, fourth, and fifth forelimb digits. These digits have remained constant relative to the body size over the last 50 million years. Because scientists have found no transitional forms in the fossil record, they've turned to embryonic development to explain the evolution of the digit lengths. It says the developmental timing of the change in wing digit is due to a change in longitudinal cartilage growth.
What's that?
Well, supposedly it's a process that's controlled by relative proliferation and differentiation of chondrocytes. It says that bone morphogenic protein 2, also known as BMP2, can stimulate cartilage proliferation and differentiation and increase digit length in the bat embryonic forelimb. So I guess it's like a gene that controls forelimb digits. Like,
Hey, we talked about that in biology class.
I think we did. This is just like that. So BMP2 expression and BMP are signals that increase bat forelimb embryonic development. Who would have thought? An upregulation of the BMP pathway is one of the major factors in the developmental elongation of bat forelimb digits.
Wait a minute. Can you explain why exactly bats evolved wings again?
Actually, Nico, can you do that so I can grab more wood for the fire?
Yeah, I can give it a shot.
Sweet.
See what I can do. So we know bats evolved from some type of land-dwelling mammal that probably eats insects, and they probably used to escape predators from climbing up trees. So basically, over time, bats' ancestors realized that they must change their ways, not only because of their predators becoming better at hunting them and learning their techniques, but also because of the amount of energy that takes to constantly run up and down a tree. So that kind of makes sense. So from first climbing trees to escape predators, they then evolved to being able to leap up high to avoid being eaten. And then they gained the ability to glide from tree to tree to soar and make the predators lost and confused.
Isn't that what like a flying squirrel or sugar glider or something does?
Yeah, pretty much. So after a while, this casual gliding stuff didn't really work out for the long run, so they ended up evolving elongated fingers and the ability to fly. So they basically evolved wings and the ability to fly so that they can better escape predators. However, after a while of being able to fly, they learned that this new technique of movement and escaping predators was very advantageous to them, so they sort of stuck with it and have it today.
That makes so much sense. Didn't you say something earlier about like another trait called echolocation or something?
Yeah, I did.
Let me take a look at that. Well, apparently, once the sky became the limit for bats, nothing could put a damper on their evolution. So echolocation is the second derived feature, and it evolved throughout the years in one of a few manners. Hypotheses suggest that echolocation either evolved once and was subsequently lost in a particular branch of bats, or it evolved multiple times in separate suborders. So, if echolocation was present in ancestral bats, this trait was eventually lost in what's called the pteropodids, a modern species of bats that does not echolocate. But if the oldest bats couldn't echolocate either, then the trait may have evolved twice, one in one suborder and one in a few species of the suborder, with the exception of those pteropodid species. So, researchers have not come to a definite conclusion regarding these hypotheses, but some bat fossils have survived with minimal enough damage or distortion so that appearances linked to echolocating abilities may be distinguished. This includes the oldest known complete fossil bat, a Chaeronicterus index of the Eocene age, which displays specialized auditory regions of the skull and demonstrates that echolocation probably evolved shortly after flight, before the ancestral bat diverged into today's many different species. 1,000, I think you said.
Yeah.
A Chaeronicterus remains the oldest known common ancestor of this derived trait and sheds light on our understanding of the evolution of echolocation. So, the morphological features associated with this derived feature include various ear bone expansions and additions, namely an enlarged cochlea, and extant non-echolocating pteropodids display moderately enlarged cochlear structures similar to fossil bats. So that means that they probably had this trait at one point and it was just lost somewhere down the road. So echolocation probably went through a later stage of re-evolution because now some of them use tongue clicking as a form of communication, which isn't that different from pure forms of echolocation. I wonder why this came to be, though. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So the reasoning behind why bats evolved echolocation is still pretty unknown due to just the small amounts of fossil evidence and genetic data that we have,
Right.
as we've already discussed. So, however, scientists have hypothesized that bats began as day flyers who simply used their eyes to navigate around Earth to find food and places to hide. When the dinosaurs' extinction came about around 65 million years ago, about 10 million years before bats evolved to what they are today, the presence of avian predators, which are flying like bird predators, drastically increased a lot. Yeah. So once bats could fly to escape terrestrial predators, they faced a new problem. They had to find a way to avert avian predators, so they became nocturnal. This way they wouldn't get eaten during the daytime while they fly. So while being nocturnal, bats eventually evolved echolocation to better navigate, communicate, and locate food at night.
That makes sense, like the bats that we saw tonight.
Yeah.
One thing I haven't seen yet is a phylogenetic tree. Okay, there one is. How do we interpret this?
Can I see it? Okay, yeah, so here it says, even though researchers have not been able to rely on fossil records to determine a definite lineage of ancestral bats, looking at the known information they have gathered from bats-derived features of echolocation and flight, researchers have been able to estimate a phylogenetic tree.
Like this one here.
Yeah, in this one, you can see the major suborders of Microchiroptera containing all the echolocating bats, and Megachiroptera containing both echolocating and non-echolocating species.
Like the pteropodids I talked about.
Yeah, like the pteropodids. The ancestors of both orders was probably one of the fossils we examined earlier that possessed both flying and echolocating abilities. In the second picture, you can see some of the predicted close relatives of bats based on genetic and morphological similarities.
Look at the shrews and moles.
Yeah, that's so crazy. And dolphins.
It's funny that they're so far away, even though they can echolocate too.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Genetic and morphological similarities. What else can we know about bats?
That's a great question. Let's see what it says. Well, it says that there are still a lot of questions that remain when it comes to bat evolution. Further research has to be done to prove or either disprove the certain hypothesis for those for echolocation that you were just talking about. But they say that it's still possible one day to uncover more fossils dating back 55 million years ago. If we can identify a more specific ancestor than just a shrew, I'm sure that it'll help their understanding of bats today a lot more. In addition to holes in the fossil record, morphology and embryology can continue to be studied to learn more about these flying mammals. Who would have thought they were so cool?
Wow. So their story's still being written.